or our hybrid plan. And so Superintendent Rob Watson from Missoula County Public Schools will be giving some updates and details about what that looks like. And then we've got a variety of speakers from our child care community speaking about the coordination efforts, some recent funding news from the governor, and what some of the actual programs might look like from a variety of our providers. And then we'll wrap it up with some comments from our health officer about all of this coordination and collaboration that's going on. So with that, our first speaker today is Rob Watson, Superintendent of Missoula County Public Schools.
Okay, thank you, Hatton. Thanks for yourself and all the others that helped set this up. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Yes? Okay. Thanks everybody for being on the call today. As Hatton said, my name is Rob Watson. I'm the Superintendent of Schools for Missoula County Public Schools. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak with folks and get some information out. And I'll just reiterate a little bit of what Hatton said as she started. So this past week, we made a recommendation to our school board to restart our in-person learning on August 26th using a hybrid model or what we're calling phase one, and I'll describe that in a little bit of detail. The recommendation was made to the board with guidance from the county health department and their support for this recommendation. The board approved that recommendation on Tuesday. So we will start our year on August 26th. We'll continue to seek guidance and watch the data regarding the case counts from COVID-19. We'll continue to seek that guidance from the health department as the weeks progress, and we'll be ready to move forward in that phase one hybrid model. So just for everyone's understanding, the hybrid model is sort of a model that allows some in-person learning and some remote learning for our students. It also allows us to lower the number of students in our school buildings, which helps in a couple ways. It helps us reduce transmission rates, but also helps us sort of work through our protocols as we're just starting the year. So one thing I did note in some of our summer programs, as kids came back into the school building, having been out of school for so long, it just took some time for students and for teachers to kind of get back in the groove of what school is, but also to start relearning some of these protocols that we've put in place. And so I do believe that starting in a hybrid model is a safe way to start. It's also a very conservative place to start because it helps us just get back into the habits of school, and also helps us start to develop those lessons and protocols with our students. So that's our plan. I also wanted to speak briefly to some of the safety measures that will look different this year. And so I really have sort of categorized our safety protocols in two ways. We have protocols for safety, but we also have done some pretty amazing things with our school schedule that provides more safety for our students and staff. So I won't go into a lot of detail on those, but I'll just highlight a little bit. So when we talk about safety protocols, there's things related to cleaning and sanitation, obviously related to face coverings for all individuals in the building, and then also distancing as much as possible between people. And then when you start to consider some of the benefits that we've created around our schedule, we've created a staggered start and end time for our buildings. That also helps with numbers of students on buses. We also created some pretty creative schedules in our K-5 and our 6-12 buildings that help us limit the mixing of students. So at K-5, we have created a cohort schedule, which keeps kids together for the majority of the day. At 6-12, we've converted our schedule to an intensive block schedule. And then basically what an intensive block schedule does is it allows students to have just a few periods each day for an extended period of weeks. What that helps is that it limits the mixing of students throughout the day. That helps in a couple of different ways. Should we have a confirmed case, it helps limit the transmission of that to other students or to teachers. And also it helps the health department with contact tracing if we can limit the mixing of kids throughout the day. So those changes to our school schedule are not easy, and school's going to look a lot different, but we're committed to following through with those changes because we believe it's important and it's a safe way to restart school. With our parent community, we've outlined what the first 4 weeks would look like in the hybrid model. We're trying to have consistent days when they'll know that they'll be in school based on the last name of the alphabet. We've made contingencies for families that may have children in their household with different last names. So we've made some contingencies and some exceptions there. We tried to be fairly consistent, as I said, in the days that kids will be in school. We've only mapped out the first 4 weeks, and we're going to obviously continue to watch how COVID-19 is spread in our community, and we're going to continue to watch the spread, the transmission rate. We'll continue to get guidance from our health department before we would move to phase 2. So we've mapped out the first 4 weeks. We'll be going back to our school board with updates on a routine basis, and if things are looking good, then we could predict perhaps a move to phase 2 after those first 4 weeks. And phase 2 would be every day, every student, but we would still have that modified schedule. We'd still have the protocols in place as we continue through phase 2. In addition to that in-person learning that I've described, we also have an MCPS online academy that is open to any student. We opened registration for that on Wednesday. The registration for that will stay open until September 2nd. And we've already got lots of students and families that have signed up for that MCPS online instruction. That instruction and those courses will be taught and facilitated by our teachers. And we're just working out the details of that, but we're pretty excited to be able to offer that opportunity for families that are looking for that option. The final thing I would just say is that we understand, as members of this community and parents ourselves, we understand that the hybrid model is very, very difficult, not only for parents, but also for students and staff. It's our hope that we won't have to stay in the hybrid model very long. But we understand that it's going to be difficult. Not only the hybrid model, but also our staggered starting and ending time is also difficult for parents that are working. We really do appreciate the partners that we have in the community, several who are on the call today. They've really stepped up and are really willing to try to help us solve some of these issues. And so I know that we'll be able to solve some of the childcare issues in working with our partners that are on the call today. So with that, I think I'm going to stop. I'll obviously stay on the call for any questions that I've had, but turn this back over to Hatton.
Great. Thanks so much, Rob. And we're going to move on to Grace Decker, who is the 0 to 5 Strategic Collaboration Coordinator for the United Way of Missoula County. And she'll talk about a lot of the coordination activities happening and set the stage for the context of childcare in this crazy pandemic.
Thanks, Hatton, and thanks, Superintendent Watson, for all of the work that's been going on in the district to get ready for this next phase. It is a really complex challenge to consider how to meet the needs of families who need to work while our economy is open and schools are operating on a hybrid and reduced modified schedule. And so it's really inspiring to me the way that the entire community of childcare providers, families, and other community partners have come together to try to work together and collaborate across organizations in new ways so that we can meet some top-level community goals around this work. The most important, of course, being to try to support the school district's efforts to minimize community spread by ensuring that we're, whenever possible, keeping children in small, consistent cohorts and being really clear with each other about which programs are operating where and communicating that to families. so that families have that information in an organized way so that we're supporting those top level health and safety goals. I do want to say that one really exciting and amazing thing is that our community of childcare and out of school care providers have been working with children, many of them right through this entire pandemic. Even since last March, when schools were in shutdown, many of our child care facilities and out of school providers stepped up their services to serve essential workers during that time. And so many of these folks have months of experience of implementing very consistent and effective health and safety protocols in those programs, including the use of masks, helping children learn those practices, helping staff learn those practices, keeping children in safe groups, using all of the kinds of precautions that we want to see in all of the programs. So this is a group of providers who've already demonstrated for months that they're ready to take on this challenge. So I feel really grateful to be working with all of them. We want to make sure that we're coordinating also so that we can try to provide care in our community in a way that's equitable and that ensures that the largest number of families who need care are able to access it in ways that work for them. This again means partnering across organizations in ways that are new and in ways that are still in progress. We'll share as much as we can about the status of planning at this time, and that information is going to continue to get shared as it continues to develop over the next days and weeks. We know that the solution around childcare is actually going to involve many partners. Several of our largest providers of out-of-school care are going to be on the call and talk with you about their programs today. Others, including Campfire and other providers across the community, including licensed childcare, are going to be part of the solution. And many of those providers might be expanding their services to work with school-age children, perhaps siblings of younger children who are already in their programs. And so we'll be sharing information about all of those solutions and how you can access those too. This is a really complex challenge, especially on the remote learning days during the hybrid schedule. And the community partners that you'll hear from are doing some really creative things to identify locations other than school buildings in which to provide that care. But I'd ask parents who are looking for that particular service to start staying in touch with us and looking on the County Joint Incident Command website for a site where we'll be posting updated information about childcare options that are available, both for after school on the modified schedule and for those remote learning days as that information becomes available from all of our different community partners. Parents will be able to go there, click on their school or school district, and see the options that are available, both for school-specific care and also for care in mixed groups from different schools available from all of our different community partners. So that's going to be a work in progress for a little while, and we'll get that information up on that website as soon as we possibly can. Without too much further ado, we're going to hear from a couple of the providers about the status of their planning, I think, but I'm going to turn it back over to Hatton first.
Thanks so much, Grace. I appreciate all those updates, and we're excited to be joined. I think if we have Kelly Rosenleaf, we're going to her next, but she is on her way, it looks like.
There it is. My camera doesn't turn around again. So thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk about a little bit more about the initiative introduced by the governor, announced by the governor earlier this week, about the $50 million that has been allocated out of the CARES Act money to support childcare and families during this time. So there are 3 buckets of help, and the largest of them is $30 million for school-age programs. So that will be, those funds will be granted to organizations that are going to take care of kids, such as the Y or Campfire or Boys and Girls Club, or it could even be pods that families are putting together, or school districts. The school itself might put something together using a facility that they're not using for school, for regular classroom during some of the remote learning time. So the biggest piece of money is there to help with out of school time care in this more robust fashion than is normally the case. So that's a really exciting thing. And those applications will be available on the 19th on the state's website. And Child Care Resources is available to assist organizations that want to apply for that money, and particularly to think about how they might set those environments up and that kind of thing. We have staff that's available to help people figure that out. I don't think, the Boys and Girls Club needs that, but some other groups might be emerging that are not normally in this business of this type of setting. And then, of course, we encourage people to coordinate with the school district because to make sure that they're in keeping with the district's expectations around remote learning, and then also health guidance and that type of thing. Then there's another $8 million that'll be going to child care facilities. They will not need to apply if they're a licensed facility. The state has already granted them some money out of the Child Care CARES Act fund. This is in addition to the child care portion, and those funds will just be distributed. If they're a new provider that is relatively new to licensed care, then Child Care Resources, we will reach out to them and get the brief application needed. So that's a simple one. So a number of child care facilities are expanding services to include school-age children. Some of them may have had school-age children before or after school, and they may be going to care for them on the remote learning days. And so some of this funds will help them make those changes and adjustments to their programs. And then the last piece is $10 million that's available for families that have special circumstances that make it difficult for their children to participate in classroom instruction or to be in groups. So they're not able, because the child has a health condition or the parent has a health condition or the parent works in a high-risk setting that so then the whole family is at higher risk for developing coronavirus. And so those children maybe are not safe in a group setting. There might be some other learning issues that a child has that makes it difficult for them to participate in these type of sort of compromised group settings. So in that case, there could be funding available to help them care for the child and educate the child at home. But I want to be very clear that this money is not intended just because school is in a hybrid model. It is just because school isn't open. It is for children who, for one reason or another, cannot be in a group setting, or that there's no group setting available. So, for example, I know Seeley Lake is a part of Missoula County Public Schools. There are fewer programs available in that rural community, and so it might be necessary to have an in-home arrangement for days that school is not open in that situation. And also foster families or families that are kinship care, for example. We have a lot of grandparents raising grandchildren, and in those situations, maybe less able to support parents or support remote learning. So we're going to have to look at those cases one at a time, and people will submit those applications to Child Care Resources. They're a very simple application. They'll be available on the 19th. You might need to call and ask some questions, get a little more information, and then we will issue those payments. They'll be $4,000, and there's a lot of flexibility in how families might spend that money. So they are not income-based, but they are based. The whole driver of them is the special circumstance that makes group care unhealthy, particularly unhealthy for this particular family, or that group care is simply unavailable to the family. So we'll be working on that. We'll be happy to work with families about it. We are standing up what's necessary for what we expect to be a very active application process, and our ability to turn payments around. We'll be writing those checks, not the state. So we'll be able to get them out more quickly then the state would be able to do that through their more complicated system. So we're looking forward to helping. We're available to help programs that want to stand up a school-age program, and available to help both childcare providers as well and families that need it. And so we're really excited about this opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate the detail and the breadth of your update there. And we're going to turn it now to actual childcare providers, who can talk a little bit about their programs. We'll start with Heather Foster, the CEO of the Missoula YMCA.
Everybody, thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit about what we have planned for the school year, and just a really quick shout out to all of the childcare providers that have been participating in this collaboration. I think it's the silver lining of all of the craziness that we've been able to really communicate in a way that we maybe never would have. And thanks to Grace, the United Way, for sort of being the facilitator and the convener of these conversations. It's been really great to work with everybody. So the easy part after school is something that we're definitely in the business of. So the Y will be providing 5 days of after school at the following locations: Russell Elementary, Chief Charlo, Paxson, and Hellgate Elementary. At Hellgate, we'll also be doing before school care. The Y's after school programs are all licensed through the state of Montana. So Kelly talked a little bit about some of the funding that's available, but if families qualify or income eligible, they can utilize Best Beginning Scholarship to pay for all of our after school programs. And Childcare Resources is the place to go to get information around qualifications and income eligibility. Outside of that, we're working to support the hybrid model. And, our current plan is to operate 5 days of full day care from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. here at the Y. We'll have very small groups that will sort of rotate through stations. Utilizing our facility, stations will include anything from doing PE to outdoor activities to some extracurriculars. And then we'll have a learning lab here where students will be able to rotate through and get online and be able to do some homework and whatever their remote learning requirements might be to hopefully alleviate a little of that stress for families. Healthy meals will be provided, breakfast and lunch through the Y. Right now, that program is not licensed. We should have registration open by the 18th. Space will definitely be limited. We have the ability to potentially expand if there is a need, especially if the hybrid model goes longer than the 4 weeks with some community partners. So we could maybe do that in the future. All Y programs also have financial assistance available. So if anybody needs some assistance, our Welcome Center is the best place to go. And outside of that, we should have everything up on our website relatively soon. After school registration is currently open. And then all of our programs will include health screenings, masking. So same protocols that we've been doing for the last sort of 20 weeks, which seems crazy. So I think that's probably the synopsis of what we have available right now.
Thank you so much, Heather. That's super. And now we'll turn it to Missoula Parks and Rec, and we'll hear from Meg Witcher, the Recreation Program Supervisor.
Hi, guys. Happy Friday. Normally, we're wrapping up our summer camp season with 1 week left, but we have quickly transitioned into accommodating what's going on with our community, and we're very excited. And it's been a breath of fresh air to be able to work with these other large out of school time providers to kind of collaborate and get on the same page. It's been really supportive and nice. So Parks and Recreation, we've been able to pivot, talking about our after school program. We are going to be facilitating after school programming at Lowell Elementary School for the kids that are enrolled on that day. And that registration will happen through the school. And our traditional after school program model, where we pick up and then usually facilitate an adventure-based program, will happen at Paxson, Lewis and Clark, and Rattlesnake. And pickup for those programs will actually be in the adjacent park to the school. So we're reducing traffic in and out of school buildings. In regards to supporting the remote aspect, we are going to be offering full and half day camp programs. We had so much fun this summer. We said, why not just extend the summer camp season into late September? And then we'll be able to facilitate based on what MCPS is doing past that. But we're planned out matching MCPS schedule with a full fall camp lineup, including adventure-based programming, arts programming, and your more traditional summer camp-based program. Lots of full and half day offerings. So if parents want to do remote learning in the morning, they can send their kiddo to get some exercise with us in the afternoon. We've extended pickup and drop off time to be more flexible for parents. So you can drop off your child up to 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you want to get an hour or two of remote learning done, all of our programming is going to be 100% outdoor based. And so, we've been outdoor all summer, so we're just going to kind of continue that model. And we're just, we're excited to be able to offer this to our community. Our exact program listings and exactly which programs we will be offering will be unleashed to the community this weekend at the absolute latest by this Sunday at 10 a.m. So look for emails, look for social media. Registration for all programs, after school program, camps, Zootown derailers will all open on Wednesday, August 18th at 10:30 a.m. And so if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and that's what we've got slated for fall.
Thanks so much, Meg. And our last but certainly not least provider, Katie Moore, the Chief Executive Officer of the Boys and Girls Club.
Hi, thanks so much, Hatton. And I also just want to echo our partners with just the collaboration that has happened throughout, I guess, since March when all of this hit has just been incredible. And still being semi-new to Missoula, it's just been wonderful to just sort of see this happen in this community where it doesn't happen all the time. And so thank you. And thank you, United Way, for being a convener for that. I know this is an MCPS scheduled press release, but I'd be remiss if I didn't share also where we're serving outside of MCPS. So Boys and Girls Club this fall will be doing 2 different programs. Our after school program will be doing 5 different locations. We will be serving at Target Range School for our Target Range students. We will be serving at DeSmet for our DeSmet students. In Bonner, we'll be serving at Our Savior's Lutheran Church, which is right next door to Bonner. And down in Lolo, we'll be serving at Cornerstone Church, which is just a block away from Lolo School. So those are our outside of MCPS after school programs. And then for our MCPS students, we'll be serving small cohorts of students all at our City Life Community Center on one floor of that center, and keeping them in small groups for the duration of that after school program. And then we are also looking to doing a full day program 5 days a week, 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that is also at our City Life Center on a separate floor. So those full day program students will never be mixing with our after school program students. Pickup will be separate, drop off will be separate, all of that. There are scholarships available, and we do a sliding scale for all of our families. We do have registration open right now on our website for both of those programs. So all of the additional information can be found there, along with the costs and the scholarship application, really easily accessible. And we will still be doing facial masks, coverings all the time, daily temperature checks at the start of club, and then practicing, all of the good hygiene, hand washing, sanitizing, etc. But that is what the 2 programs will look like for Boys and Girls Club.
Thanks so much, Katie, and thanks for highlighting. We do want to make it clear that Missoula County Public Schools serves about 50% of the school-age youth in Missoula County, and there are other independent K-8 districts, so thanks for highlighting the locations you have to serve those students. And we'll finish up with our health officer, Ellen Leahy from the Missoula County Health Department, and her perspective on all of the collaboration and practices for all of these organizations. Oh, Ellen, there you go.
Thank you. I think the extraordinary collaboration is evident. I think Heather referred to it as a silver lining. I am, on one hand, not surprised when you think back in March when school closed by the governor on a less than 12-hour notice. Those kids had to be in childcare the next day, and you are looking at just some of the people that made that happen. So we know how dedicated they are, and we know how much they know about childcare. But we are doing so much more than coordinating. What we are doing, and which I'm so appreciative of, is taking some fundamental public health principles, and you've heard them referred to here, that if you're going to be perhaps using a different childcare setting or some other childcare that you may be setting up yourself with your own family or neighbor, keep these principles in mind and also watch for them at your childcare setting and ways that you can improve them. The only protection we have right now against this virus is essentially distance, or things that can control the release of respiratory droplets from traveling the distance to someone who can breathe them in. And when you think of, as we've all experienced, doing that as a full-grown adult is difficult enough. Think of it with children. And it's just phenomenal, the types of thinking and flexibility and creativity that have come out from these experts in both child development and child care to incorporate that distance. So you've heard about different pods or bubbles or cohorts, or they're basically groups to the greatest extent possible. Even if, as the school is doing, you're serving thousands of children, you can see that they're trying to keep certain pods, groups, cohorts, groups together as small as possible. Why? Because the virus is very catchy. It does break through, and particularly children may not have symptoms, and we may not know that they're contagious. So they've taken extra care to make sure, number one, that it doesn't break through. Use of masks, sanitation, screening for staff and children daily are all present in all of these plans. But if it does, the small group means that fewer people are exposed to that. And also we as a health department, assisted by all of these agencies, can get in there and do the contact tracing, which determines who else may have been exposed, get them into quarantine, assist them in getting testing. You just think of it as a fire break. If it does break through, we've got a smaller group that it can expand to. So that type of thinking and planning right down to the ground is evident in everything that you've heard. Our school district has just been incredible in their commitment to those types of approaches to continually reduce that risk. But what we're also seeing is not just coordination of, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're letting you know. You can see that some incredible collaboration so that childcare can meet not just the typical childcare needs, which are difficult enough in any community, but the need to get school open, keep it open it slowly, be prepared to perhaps step back. All of those things have been anticipated to the fullest extent possible, and with incredible and flexible thinking. So we have seen nothing but not just cooperation from what our guidance is, but creativity from all of these entities. They've just absolutely brought the best forward, and I'm so very appreciative. We cannot improve, protect, practice public health without good educational and safe educational settings, and very reliable daycare for all sorts of different populations and needs. So thank you very, very much for everything from the moment the schools closed in March to this incredible product you've brought forward today.
Thank you so much, Ellen. So that concludes all the speakers and program remarks. If there are any reporters on the call that have questions, I'll moderate those. The easiest way to do that is for you to raise your hand, click participants, and at the bottom of your participants window, click raise hand. If you can't find that, you can send me a message in the chat. All righty, first from Martin. You can go ahead and unmute.
Hey, thanks. Good morning. Last year, it was said that Missoula had a general shortage of child care providers. Does it now have the capacity to accommodate a larger number of children who may need care during or after school when parents work?
Thanks, Grace.
Yeah, thanks for the question, and thanks for being aware that Montana has historically been experiencing a childcare shortage for many years. It's an issue that most working parents and certainly our Chamber of Commerce are very aware of in our community. When schools closed, many childcare providers did as well, and many families have not fully returned to sending their children to childcare full time. So since March, many existing childcare providers have had something of a rolling up and down with enrollment, and many continue to be under their capacity in numbers in that 0 to 5 age range that's more typically served by childcare. The real challenge right now, though, is that when we're talking about school-age children on days when they would typically be in school, that's a service that's never been needed before. Children who are of school age are typically in school while their parents are working. And so with school operating on a very different schedule, that creates a gap that we don't necessarily yet have all of the services in place to meet. Providers who are already serving school age children in the summer, during school vacations, and during after school times, like the folks who are on this call, are moving very quickly to try to provide support in these new gaps. So on those remote learning days and longer in the afternoon. But it's taking a lot of creativity and a lot of collaboration to do that in ways that are safe, that provide equitable access that's affordable as possible for families, and also use all of our resources effectively. One particular challenge that I'll mention around that is that space for school-age children while schools are occupied is a real challenge in the community. Most providers of childcare for 0 to 5 have rooms that are fitted out for infants, toddlers, and preschoolers. And so their space and equipment is not designed with 8, 9, 10-year-olds in mind. And if school buildings are occupied, school buildings aren't a site where childcare can happen. That's just one of the many challenges that these skilled providers are working to solve, and doing that together.
Thank you.
All righty, next we have a question from Katie Miller. Go ahead and unmute.
Hi, yeah, I don't know if I just missed this, but how many families have opted for online learning?
Thanks, Rob.
So we did an initial interest survey just to see how many might be interested in it. We had on that survey about 26% of our population that might be interested. Then we opened up the actual registration on Wednesday. And so we haven't completed that registration process. It's open until September 2nd. Right now we're running about 10% of our families that have registered. But again, it's open for a few more weeks.
Thank you.
Okay, and Margaret, you're next up.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for holding this meeting. Oh, having a little bit of, okay, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank y'all for holding this meeting. It's been really good and informational. I do have a question for Rob though. So with online learning, I know there's been a lot of issues on programs like Zoom where hackers have gotten in and kind of interrupted meetings. And I was just wondering if you guys are taking any additional cybersecurity measures for online learning.
Yeah, that's a can you hear me all right? Without feedback? That's a great question. We actually have our own platform through Google Classroom. That's fairly secure because students in our district have to have a district Google login to get into it. So it's fairly secure. We don't use Zoom that often. except maybe for staff meetings. But even then, we use Google mostly. The other thing I would just mention is that for grades 6 through 12 for our online academy, we will have an additional platform that helps our teachers to put lessons together and push those out to students. And it is also a secure platform. So I feel pretty confident that our platforms are secure. But one of the things we noted last fall, just to give you a real quick, or I'm sorry, last spring, to give you a quick example, even on our Google platform, one of the practices that we did is we made sure that students logged out before the teacher did, because what we were finding is sometimes the teacher thought the meeting was over, but students stayed on the meeting, which obviously that left students unsupervised with each other on a Google. So we just did some of those quick changes, protocol changes, to make sure that our students were safe.
Thanks, Rob. It looks like Montana Public Radio has the next question. Go ahead and unmute.
Good morning. This is Ed. I'm Heather, Katie, or Meg. I'm just curious, how are kids adjusting to these new approaches? Do you all have any observations about these smaller groups or whatever? What's working, what's not?
Go ahead, Heather.
You know, I think kids are incredibly resilient, first of all, and I think it's easier for them than adults in some ways. The small groups can be a little bit more challenging, especially if you have a buddy that's over in another group that you don't really get to spend as much time with. But, you know, I would say kids are getting it, and it feels like such a teachable moment for our counselors and our teachers to be able to really explain the benefits and the safety procedures and what it's doing for our community, and talk about community health in a new way. So I think overall it's been really pretty inspiring to watch kids, you know, adjust to whatever this new normal is. And I think kids are going to be looking forward to some sort of routine again, even if it looks a little different. I've heard kids throughout camp come and say, I'm just really excited to put a backpack on. So I think kids are looking for that, and yeah, they're awesome.
Meg, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. And I mirror exactly what Heather was saying. In fact, I find that the kids, even with mask wearing and that sort of stuff, it's all how you frame it and approach it with the kids. And if you set the expectations and you create a social story around the expectations, they've been just plumb fine wearing masks. I will say the physical distancing is a little bit more difficult, but the hand washing and the face mask wearing has gone pretty dang smoothly over in our neck of the woods. I will say at the beginning of all this, after shelter in place, we did notice a little bit of a delay of kids trying to socially try and figure out how to interact with each other after just being with their families or in their small pods of groups. But now here we are, 10, 11 weeks into summer, and they're kind of rocking and rolling a lot more. And if anything, I've seen an increase of return to imaginative play, where kids are playing with each other in a less facilitated by adults manner, because they've had so much downtime that isn't overprogrammed with soccer practice and programming, which has been kind of a cool thing to see.
Thanks, Meg. All righty, we have a question from Mazana.
Hi, I wanted to ask Kelly, I think I just missed this, but was all the grants that are for the different programs, were those all from the CARES Act fund, or were some of them from different grants?
They are from the CARES Act. Just to get a little wonky and confusing, in the beginning, the CARES Act had for Montana $10.1 million set aside for childcare. That money has been fully expended. So there was a great deal of flexibility in the bulk of the CARES Act funding. So this $50 million comes out of the general part of the CARES Act, not specifically set aside for childcare.
Thanks so much, Kelly. Okay, any remaining questions from anyone on the call? Super. So I placed a link in the chat to the Joint Information Center webpage, specifically the page that hosts information on schools, childcare, and the university. We'll certainly be updating the Missoula County Public Schools information on that page. And then next week, you'll see more information, some of the details that you heard from the providers today, as well as others. And just keep an eye out, media that are on the call, for the media release that will come out from the Joint Information Center probably next Wednesday. Hopefully we'll have some updated information in there for you. Thanks so much to everybody for joining, and we just so appreciate that Missoulians are really good at collaborating. Have a great weekend.